السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. So we were just going through Kitab al-Riqaq, and in this chapter we explained that Imam Bukhari's purpose of bringing these ahadith were to soften our hearts, cleanse our hearts, purify our hearts. And in the particular hadith we were going through, the Prophet ﷺ, he gave 6 discouragements, and we went through them. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says, كَانَ يَنْهَى عَنْ قِيلَ وَقَالَ. The first thing is that he prevented us from speaking about others in an ill way, saying he said, she said. وَكَثْرَةُ السُّؤَالِ, asking excessive, irrelevant questions. Number 3, وَإِضَاعَةُ الْمَالِ, wasting your wealth, doing israf and being excessive and being unnecessary with your wealth. وَمَنْعُ وَهَادٍ, and preventing yourself from giving those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you to give. When it comes to zakah, you have to give your zakah, and withhold and giving those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you not to give. So we gave the example that a person, a believer, they can only give 1/3 as a wasiyah, as inheritance. Then the next one, the 5th, is uququl ummahat, that disrespecting, disobeying, dishonoring your mothers and your parents in general. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put our parents on such a pedestal. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. We've heard these verses so many times, that along with His worship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put our parents. So the importance of our parents. And the final one which I want to emphasize on, وَوَأْدُ الْبَنَاتِ. وَوَأْدُ الْبَنَاتِ, that burying your daughters. Now why do I want to emphasize this? In this day and age, who is going to bury their daughters, right? It's going to come to our head. But when you think about it, and even till this day, daughters have always been devalued in the families, even till today. Because when you think about it, in many Eastern cultures, the lineage, who does it come through? The males, right? The male figures. So when they see that they've been given daughters, it's something that's a disgrace on a family. And this is what happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The mushrikun and the polytheists, when they would see that they had a daughter, instead of being happy, their faces would blacken with disgrace and dishonor through rage. You know how when you're angry, sometimes you can just see it in a person's face, their color disfigures and changes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. That these people, they would be so enraged that they had a daughter that their face would completely change. And in many cultures, even within our Eastern culture, in India in fact, there's certain religions that instead of the men giving dowry to the women have to give dowry to the men actually. So many girls, they find it difficult to marry in India because of this, because they can't afford it. And so when the parents, they see that they've been given a daughter, for them it's a big burden. So in Islam, there is no dishonor if you have a daughter. There's no disgrace. There's no stigma. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned in a hadith that إِذَا آل أحدكم جاريتين حتى تبلغ, that if any one of you look after any 2 girls until they become mature, جاء أنا وهو يوم القيامة كهاتين, that he and I will come on the day of judgment like this. وَضَمَّ أَصَابِعَيْهِ, and he put his fingers together. A person who has, and this is not specifying that you have to have 2 daughters. This number is just generic. If you have any daughter and you've brought them up in the best way, in the correct manner, then you and the Prophet ﷺ, I and the Prophet ﷺ will be like this. And when you think about it, the fathers out there who have daughters, it's so difficult, right? Because one day, sons will always be there, right? Sons will always be there for the father, for the mother. Usually they don't have to move far away from the home, or they can visit regularly. But for a daughter, she has to, as soon as she reaches that age, it's time for marriage. A father and a mother know very less likely that they're going to see their daughter again like that. It's so difficult. The daughter has so much responsibility in the family, and thereafter she's gone. So emotionally, it's so difficult for parents actually to let go of their daughters, and this is the reason the Prophet ﷺ says, "Kahatain." And so blessed are those of us who have daughters, and may Allah give all of us daughters so we can actually, we can be like this. Those daughters of ours and those sons of ours, why are you being, sexist? Those sons of ours can also take us to Jannah, but our daughters also have a special place. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding. And just the last point I want to end on, that وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ. So the question comes that on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask those daughters that were buried alive at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and still today, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. Those daughters that were buried alive, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ, they will be questioned, بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. What wrong did you do? What sin did you do that you were killed? And when you think about nowadays, we have something similar. Abortion. Abortion, is that not the same thing? And in America, I know it's such a big thing. People are pro-abortion, anti-abortion. But what is the Islamic view? And just briefly in the last minute or so, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions there's two hadith, and the scholars, they have two opinions. That in one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he explained the stages of the embryology. إن أحدكم يجمع خلقه في بطن أمه 40 يوما ثم يكون علقة مثل ذلك ثم يكون مضغة مثل ذلك ثم يرسل الملائكة فينفخ فيه الروح. So in this hadith, there's three stages where it's in the womb, and thereafter it becomes a hanging clot, and thereafter it becomes a piece of flesh, and then the angel comes and blows life. So that is 120 days. And in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says that after 42 days, the angel comes and he's commanded by Allah to form the physical appearance of the child. And science corroborates with this actually, that after 42 days, around 6 weeks, if you go for your scan, you can see the physical appearances of the child. So the scholars say that, some say that you have the option until 120 days, until the soul doesn't enter the fetus. And some say no, you have until 40 days. Beyond that, you cannot abort the child unless it's for a valid shar'i reason, legal reason, where the life of the mother is in danger if this child were to come out. And at that occasion, you should consult your local scholar if this is the situation. But وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. This is something that we should always keep in our mind, that every single life is of value. Every single life is of value. Our daughters are of value. Our sons are of value. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding. Subhanallah wa bihamdih. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.